So this is a specific section of my channel called True Crime in Slow English. The idea of this is to tell true crime in slow English. Now, I'll give you some information about why I've decided to do this. True crime is it's a genuinely interesting topic, and millions of people are interested in this. Of course, that's why we have so many podcasts, so many YouTube channels, Netflix documentaries. We have millions of things to consume. I think this could be useful to some language learners because this is how I practiced Italian. I was really finding it difficult to keep listening to language podcasts and grammar podcasts and instructions about vocabulary and verbs. It became really repetitive and boring for me. Now, I was genuinely interested in true crime, so I thought, okay, I should find a true crime podcast just in Italian. When I did this, I was much more engaged, much more focused. My understanding improved a lot quicker, and in turn, so did my speaking. So I thought, okay, this could be something useful for my students, for my listeners. The idea of this playlist is to tell true crime stories, but with modified vocabulary, and to tell it in a slow way so that my listeners, my students can follow these stories, but also follow the English and follow the language that's being used in them. So that's my history. Today's video is very important for this playlist. Before we tell true crime stories, it's important that we understand some common vocabulary, words and expressions that are used often in true crime. These words appear again and again in a lot of stories, especially when we talk about the legal side of things. So in today's video, I'm going to explain some of the most important vocabulary that you should know if you are someone who's interested in true crime. Not just for this channel, but for any channel, any documentary that you may want to watch in the future. Okay, let's talk English. So first, let's talk about the crime itself. A crime is an illegal action, something that is against the law. A verb that we often use with this is to commit. To commit a crime. This simply means to do something illegal. He committed a serious crime. We don't in English say to do a crime or to make a crime. I've heard this from students before. These are not the verbs that we use. Who commits crimes? Criminals. A criminal. A criminal is a person who commits a crime. Victim. A victim is the person who is hurt or even killed when a crime happens. They are affected by the crime. For example, the victim was found in his apartment. Now, a crime may have a witness. A witness is a person who sees or hears or, for other reasons, knows about the crime that has happened. A witness saw the man leaving the building. We have to protect the witnesses. Here we have a phrase, to break the law. To break the law. When you commit a crime, when you do something illegal, a very common verb that we use is to break. He is a criminal because he broke the law. Now, the next one is a phrasal verb. This one is very, very useful for a lot of true crime stories, and that is to get away with it. To get away with something. This means when you commit a crime, but you are not caught, you are not found, or you are not punished. Lots of criminals believe that they have this ability to get away with a crime. He thought he could get away with the crime, to do something illegal and then not be punished for it. In crimes, we often have a motive. A motive, the motivation, is the reason for a crime. Money can be a motive. Love can be a motive. Revenge can be a motive. In crimes, we often see the use of a weapon as well. A weapon is something like a gun, like a knife. It can be any object actually that is used to attack or to hurt someone. She used the chair as a weapon. The police found a weapon at the scene, which leads me nicely to the next one, a crime scene. The crime scene is the place where the crime has happened. This is the scene that usually goes under investigation. You cannot access it because the police need to look at the crime scene. Now let's move on to the investigation. After a crime happens, naturally, what comes next is the investigation, the process of examining the crime scene, talking to witnesses, talking to friends and relatives of the victim, trying to look for answers and facts. That's what it means to investigate, to look for answers and facts. So, during an investigation, we often hear from the detective. The detective is the person who detects, the police officer, usually, who investigates the crime. The detective arrived at the scene. Another important word is suspect. Now, this can be a verb or a noun. This is either the person that the police are interested in because they think they may have committed a crime, or you can suspect a person. I suspect he is guilty of this crime. The suspect lived near the victim. We suspect he had something to do with it. Our next word is evidence. Evidence. This is the proof. This is information or objects that help show what happened. Evidence can be physical. You can have fingerprints, you can have DNA evidence, you can have messages, videos, anything that contributes to the story, anything that helps us understand what happened and even why it may have happened. The police found important evidence. During an investigation, it is very common for the police to do interviews. An interview, of course, is when the police asks questions. You will often see in true crime stories as well the interview room, the room in which the interviews happen. Someone is brought in for questioning, they are asked questions. This is also an opportunity to give a statement to the police, an official statement. This is what a person declares has happened. It can come from a witness, it can come from the victim, it can come from a potential suspect. So, during an investigation, the detectives investigate, the police ask questions, and there is the collection of evidence. Now, let's talk about what happens when you have successfully caught a suspect, you have an arrest and a trial. So, the first word we need to start with is, of course, arrest. This can be a verb, this can be a noun. To arrest, or there was an arrest. This is when the police have enough evidence to officially take someone into jail. This does not mean they go to prison. This is just the initial stage. When the police arrest a suspect, they take him to jail. There's usually a long process before the end of the trial. When you are charged with the crime, this means that the police officially say you committed the crime. You have been charged with the crime of, and then whatever the crime was. If you have been accused, this is a verb, to accuse. When someone makes an accusation, when someone accuses you of doing something, they say, it was him, he did this thing, I'm accusing this person. An accusation can happen with or without evidence. It is just the process of saying, he's the one, he's the person who did this thing. After you are arrested, you often have to wait for the trial. The trial is when the case goes to court. You have a judge and you have people who are deciding whether you are guilty or not based on the evidence presented to them. The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was a very emotional trial. Often as well, you can have witnesses. Often you have the family and relatives of the victim present in court. A judge is the person who controls the court. They tend to be a little bit higher and they are central. You can think of the judge as the referee of the court. They are the rule enforcer, the manager, the legal guide, and the decider of the punishment. Next to the judge is very common to see a jury, the group of people who decide if, based on the evidence, you are guilty or not. And in the end, the jury has to make a verdict. A verdict is the decision. And that decision is guilty or not guilty. Guilty, you've committed the crime. Not guilty, you haven't committed the crime. And after a jury has reached their verdict, if they have decided that you are guilty, you need sentencing. When you are sentenced, this is when the judge decides the final punishment. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was waiting for his sentencing. And then, of course, prison is where you go if you are found guilty. This is where you spend your sentence.
So, if you would like to see a still image of the vocabulary, here I've got 2 pages with all 22 words and phrases that we've discussed in this class. Feel free to pause the video, take screenshots, take notes, and come back to this when you need.
Of course, there are many more words and phrases that you may hear when listening to true crime, but the list I've given you today, these are the most common. So it's important that we understand them, especially if we want to enjoy and consume true crime in English. In my next true crime video, I will present my first case. I'm really excited for this one. If you want to return to this video and just practice your vocabulary before the true crime video comes out, I advise it. And this is not just for my channel, this is for any true crime you may watch. If it's a documentary, if it's another podcast or another YouTuber, this vocabulary will always be relevant for this topic. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.